Well, after strong pressure from Israel in accordance with the U.S.-mediated ceasefire deal, Hamas returned more bodies of Israeli hostages. But Prime Minister Netanyahu says Israel won't back down until every hostage is brought home. Meanwhile, doctors say freed captives are stable but deeply scarred. Joining me now is Washington Stand reporter Casey Harper, who's been following today's main stories, even though he's been celebrating his birthday. Casey, thanks for joining us. What's the latest out of Israel?
Oh, Tony, you remembered. It's great. Thank you so much. Well, it's quite the story developing in Israel. Israel, of course, they're demanding that Hamas return all these remaining hostages, both alive and dead, as part of this U.S. brokered peace deal. And so far, Hamas has released those 20 living hostages, but the 7 of the 28 expected bodies of the deceased hostages have been turned over. And in fact, one body that was turned over wasn't a hostage at all.
Hamas agreed to release all 48 of our hostages in phase 1 and made the specific confirmation to President Trump, and we are expecting to see the terror organization uphold their side of this agreement.
Now, an Israeli spokesperson warned that aid to Gaza could be further restricted if Hamas fails to hand over the bodies of those remaining deceased hostages, which was part of the peace plan. At the same time, as you said, reports say Hamas is cracking down in Gaza, allegedly even executing people suspected of collaborating with Israel or the Palestinian Authority, Tony.
Thanks, Casey. We're hearing rising concerns about religious freedom issues around the globe. That's something we track very closely here at the Family Research Council. But new reports out of Turkey that Christian missionaries are being targeted once again. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Tony, Turkey has actually deported over 200 Christians since 2020 and labeling them a, quote, security threat, despite having no charges or evidence to support that. Now, many of these Christians had lived there for years and led local churches. Now they're banned from re-entry, leaving those congregations without pastors. Sadly, the same thing is happening in China. Globally, believers from the US, UK, South Korea, even Latin America are facing targeted persecution. But Tony, what's putting this Turkey issue in the spotlight now is a major case before Europe's top human rights court, which is ratcheting up the pressure on Turkey to end what many Christian groups are calling a quiet purge of peaceful believers.
You know, Casey, what's interesting about that, when you read in Revelation of the 7 churches, they're all in the geographical area of Turkey. Right. And Christianity is almost being extinguished there in Turkey. And this is not a new problem. Pastor Andrew Brunson, an American pastor, was unjustly jailed in Turkey for 2 years on false charges before the previous Trump administration pressured Erdogan to release him. And of course, the Family Research Council played a role in that case as we advocate for the rights of Christians around the world. All right, Casey, switching gears, it's day 15. Any progress in the efforts to reopen the government?
Yeah, so we are on the West Coast. I'm here in D.C. on the East Coast, and for the 9th time here in D.C., Senate Democrats blocked a bill to reopen the government today. So Republicans, they've consistently been pushing for that simple funding measure that would continue funding through November 21st, but it failed again, as I said. So Senate Majority Leader John Thune, he's accusing Chuck Schumer of shutting down the government and appeasing radical left groups.
Not even the prospect of military families going without a paycheck was enough for Democrats to reopen the government. Nor are Democrats concerned about needy families uncertain about the future of nutrition assistance. And all those Americans living in uncertainty, well, they're just going to have to wait until Democrats' far-left base is satisfied.
So Senator Thune, he's now pushing a vote on an $852 billion defense package to highlight how this shutdown is actually a threat to national security. Now, the OMB director, he warned today that more than 10,000 federal workers could face layoffs. But just an hour after he said that, in San Francisco, not too far from you, a Clinton-appointed judge temporarily blocked those firings during the shutdown following a complaint from federal employee unions, Tony.
Interesting times in which we live, a lot to pray about. One other item I want to touch on, very significant and close to home for me. The Supreme Court heard a case brought by the state of Louisiana that could have major implications for congressional redistricting. What unfolded at the court today?
Yeah, that's right, Tony. The U.S. Supreme Court, they heard those arguments today in a major case that's challenging specifically the use of race in drawing congressional districts under the Voting Rights Act. Now, the Supreme Court's conservative majority, they signaled some support for striking down a black majority House district in Louisiana, saying it's relying too heavily on race. Now, the move has been backed by Louisiana and the Trump administration, and it could have major precedent, even reshaping congressional maps across the South and potentially boosting Republicans and limiting the use of race in future redistricting, Tony.
I mean, this is a quite significant development, going to have ramifications across the board. Casey, thanks so much. Always great to get an update, and enjoy the rest of the day and your birthday.
Thanks, Tony.